Mannequin Chill is back, and we are talking some rookie rostership. And Shane, we're going to go through each of our own portfolios. I'm about 90% done with my drafts. I believe I have 6 more remaining, and that's out of 46 leagues that I'm currently in. So for the most part, most of my drafts are finished. I know you had mentioned that you are pretty much done with most of yours. So we're going to do kind of a recap show, but we're going to talk more through the process of how we arrived at so many shares of these players and how we ended up with very little or none of others. So I'm ready to roll, but am I accurate in saying that most of your drafts are also done? So we're pretty much operating on almost full completion of our rookie season?
It is sad but true. Sad but true. Very, very sad but true. I'm looking at, I think, 5 remaining drafts out of 33 leagues, and one of those is actually a startup that I believe will have rookies in it. So yeah, just about done. It comes so fast, It's like kids. They grow up so fast. If you don't take pictures, you're just gonna not remember it.
Well, we may not remember a lot of these players even 3 months from now, let alone a year or 3 years from now. But let's start with the quarterback position. This was a polarizing class where there were a lot of quarterbacks, but quite a few of the quarterbacks that got taken in the first round or even just in the class in general, there were some very hardline opinions on either side. So let's start with the quarterbacks. Where are you at? Most rostered QBs? Who are the ones you found yourself taking the most? And then any that you wish you had more of or you didn't get any? What's your quarterback exposure looking like?
So there is Michael Pratt. Michael Pratt, I don't think anyone cares about him, but he's been the quarterback I've been able to grab off of every waiver wire. At least I was able to grab off of every waiver wire after the rookie draft. In a couple cases, I was actually able to get him in the second wave of waivers. Who don't I have enough of? That's easy. Caleb Williams. I have Caleb Williams in a grand total of 1 league. I had a few 102s, but not a lot of 101s. And whenever I had the 102s, it seemed that Caleb went off the board and Marv was available. Or in a couple leagues, I went another way and got Jaden Daniels at 102. But Jaden Daniels, Drake May, those are my next highest owned quarterbacks. 3. Ownership percentage is only 10%. But again, I guess I went heavy at wide receiver, and we'll get there. But yeah, definitely light at quarterback. I have 1 Nix. I do have 1 Nix. I do have 1 Penix and 1 JJ McCarthy. I thought I would end up with more JJ McCarthy. I thought I would end up, obviously, like I said, with more Caleb Williams, but that didn't work out. Sometimes when the draft falls a certain way, you just got to make the pick, and that's the only reason that there's a Bo Nix share on my team as well.
Yeah, I'm pretty similar. I have 11 Michael Pratts. I have 13 Devin Learys. I've been drafting both of those guys at the very end of the draft or picking them up off waivers because they have a chance to be backup quarterbacks. They're both in situations where the backup quarterbacks are awful, and so the team used a draft pick on them. If they don't win the job, the beauty of taking those types or picking those guys up is I can cut them immediately. It means they are not backup quarterbacks, and it means they can go to waivers. There is no, let me see if they win the backup job in 2025, or we'll wait and see if they bring in another QB. If they're not the backup, they're gone. So I'm typically taking those guys anywhere I can. Next up for me, Shane, Michael Penix. I have traded a 25 first 3 times to go draft Michael Penix. I have 8 shares of Michael Penix, and I'm trying to get to 10. So I am all in on Michael Penix. I am all in on the I don't want to make a pick, so I will draft a player that I think is a guaranteed value holder. Now, you would say, well, why did you give up a 25 first for Michael Penix? And obviously, there's some nuance to those trades. There's going to be a pick where maybe I was okay trading it. Made a trade earlier today in a 2 QB league where I traded a 25 first and second to get Michael Penix. Now, it's a Devy depleted league, so those first aren't the same value, but the point is I was willing to pay a first to get what I think is a potentially good asset, but also a player that I think is almost guaranteed to have some trade value going forward. So I'm very all in on Michael Penix. If you're not, listen, I've heard smart people make arguments as to why they don't want to touch Michael Penix. Now, namely, it is he's not going to start for 3 years, which I clearly don't believe. But if that's your bet, fine. I think the one flaw in that thinking is that the person that drafted him, aka me in this case. Now, if we're talking 2026 and he hasn't sniffed the field, okay. But to think you're going to get him 30% cheaper next summer, I think is a flaw in thinking. The point is, like, the person that drafts him here isn't expecting him to take over the job mid-season. So they're not going to be willing to go, oh, Shane, he didn't start this year. He's not going to ever start. Let me just sell him for a 203 next year. I just don't feel like that's going to happen.
So let me say this to you, though. In season, things change, right? In season, things change. If you find yourself in a position where you need or want another wide receiver, want or need a running back, and you've got Michael Penix sitting on your bench, and he hasn't started a game, and Kirk Cousins has looked good. And I'm not talking about, obviously, the end of the season, not after the season, because then people put their thinking caps back on. But in season, I could see trying to get some Michael Penix exposure, some more Michael Penix exposure. Sending something like, people probably going to crucify me, but if JSN's having a decent year, let's say he's up to 11, a whole 11 fantasy points per game, and I don't need him, but I wouldn't mind adding another quarterback to my arsenal. I could see trying to get some Michael Penix that way. And JSN's just a proxy, really. It could be Jaden Reed. It could be anybody like that. Someone that I don't think is going to ever be a wide receiver 1. Most likely, they're going to live in that low wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 range. I think I will try to get some Michael Penix then. Because like you said, after the season, it's going to be too late. Because at that point, everyone's going to follow the narrative of, okay, even if Cousins had a good year, now they're going to want to get Penix a start, the starting job, because they're not going to want to let him sit for 3 years.
I think that's the key point. Is people may go, wow, you're really in on Penix. No, I'm not really in on Penix. And actually, I have very neutral or indifferent opinions as him on a quarterback level. But the investment level, I think there's going to be teams where I have Michael Penix stashed, and mid-season, I'm willing to trade Michael Penix for something. But I'm going to be looking at him in that trade as like, I'm giving you a 25 first. So I don't think the risk is there as much as it would be if I draft Keon Coleman or Xavier Legette. I'll take him over those guys. Sure, those guys could hit and become good. But if they don't hit right away, they're going to be cast aside as the demand for them is going to be low. Whereas I think the demand for Michael Penix is a little low right now, but it will slowly build and mature and just kind of sit there. And then there's going to be a window at some point. Then I will have to probably do another video to say, what am I doing with my 29% Michael Penix shares that I've been collecting? Because it's probably not going to change. The bet is not going to change much over the next 3-6 months, right? He's probably going to be the backup. He's learning. Everything you hear from Atlanta is going to be, he's looking fine. He's learning the offense, learning from Kirk Cousins, blah, 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 blah. There's going to be a breaking point, and I want to have as much exposure when we get to that breaking point as possible. My next highest rostered quarterback is Jaden Daniels, 4 shares. Then I am completely even between Bo Nix, Caleb Williams, JJ McCarthy, and Drake May, 2 shares each. So very like yours, just kind of there. I have a couple pretty unremarkable. I have 2 Spencer Rattler. I wasn't huge on Spencer Rattler in terms of like where he goes relative to, me wanting to pick him, but I've been able to take a couple shots at him. That's another one. He's a richer version of Devin Leary and Michael Pratt. If he's not the backup, then you're not going to want him. If he is the backup, I can see there being a market for Spencer Rattler because people don't like the starter that's ahead of him. So maybe do you wish you would have gotten more of a guy like Spencer Rattler?
I have literally none, which is
wow,
hilarious.
0.
Yeah, 0. And before the draft and even after the draft, I'm like, hey, he fell to the 5th or whatever. He's still a guy that I thought I would target in some of my drafts. Or target's a strong word. But you know what I mean? Like late 3rd, 4th round, I figured, maybe I'll take a shot on him. But I think every time I turned my attention to him, someone else had already taken him. Or I just thought I didn't like the option, him over the other options.
So his ADP per keep trade cut is pick number 40. So it would be the 404. But it has guys like Will Shipley, Ray Davis, those guys right with the same range or higher. I'm assuming you would have taken those guys over him.
Yeah, when we get to my running backs, I think you're going to see where all my Spencer Rattler shares could have been actually ended up.
Yeah, same here. I'll give a shout out to this one. Tanner Mordecai is a guy I've been picking up. He is a rookie QB, didn't get drafted, but he went to San Francisco and they have Josh Dobbs. And everywhere Josh Dobbs has gone, he has worn out his welcome within like 4 weeks. You'd think a guy that did what he did, you'd kill to have him in the quarterback room, right? But then you're like, everyone has given up on him. Everyone knows he's a rocket scientist and still has given up on him. So, I mean, just say Tanner Mordecai, you never know if there's an offense you could throw a rando in there and it's like, can you throw the ball? Yes. Okay, listen. Kyle Shanahan is your coordinator. Go out there and throw it. You know what I mean? Josh
Dobbs will make an excellent coach one day if he so chooses to do that.
Potentially, yes. All right, let's move on to the more exciting positions. We'll save. You want to knock tight ends out in like 3 minutes?
Yeah, okay.
So mine is my highest rostered is, and all of these tight ends other than Brock Bowers are even in the keep trade cut rankings where we use the tight end plus, which is like 1.75 premium. Like all of these tight ends are going in the late third at the very earliest. So I have 3 of Brock Bowers. I have 3 of Theo Johnson, Cade Stover, 2 Jatavian Sanders, 1 Ben Sinnott, 1 Jared Wiley, and 7 Eric Alls. And I don't know why I have 7 Eric Alls, because he doesn't really go much higher or lower, but there's some people out there in the space that have pumped him up as, oh man, if he wasn't injured, he should have been the tight end too. He went to Iowa, so there's just, if he's good, Shane, he went to Iowa, so someone will go, he's good.
Yeah, he's
and he's on the Bengals, and people have starved for a Bengals tight end for years, even though they clearly don't care about the tight end.
They completely don't.
Eric All checks all the boxes of like a tight end people could like. I'm just not sure if he's any good, but he has all the peripheral things that makes me go, okay, I could tell myself a story where I could flip this guy. So that's all I got. So how about you?
Well, I do have 1 Eric All. I did have 2, but as we discussed on the morning drive today, on the drive to work, someone offered me a 3rd for him. I got him in the 4th. That's a profit. Anytime you can make a profit on a dude like that, you do so. I've got 1 of him, Theo Johnson, Cade Stover, only 1 Jatavian Sanders, 4 Brock Bowers. 4 Brock Bowers. I did not realize I don't want to say that much, but that's a little heavier than I thought. For some reason, I only thought I had like 2 of them. So that's a lot of, it's a word I'm looking for. A lot of exposure to a rookie tight end. Usually that's not my way, but obviously this is all in 1.75 tight end premium leagues. And also, quite frankly, he kept falling a little lower than I thought he would. There was a point in time when we were talking about he could go off the board at 104. And I was able to get him lower than that, obviously. 105, 6, 7, in some cases 108. So I did. And then Jaheim Bell. I'm not really sure what I'm doing there. A lot of Jaheim Bell, 6 shares. I believe he is a weapon, is the word they want to use him as. He was a running back / fullback / H-back / tight end, which means he wasn't good at anything, but just good enough to get on the field. So not really sure what I'm doing there.
Also smaller and slower.
Yes. So I just keep picking him up because I go, it's 1.75. I have to have someone on my rosters, right? All the running backs that I want are gone at this point because Jaheim Bell is on my 3rd rounds of waivers. That's where I'm getting him. Waivers have run, at least the 2 major ones have run. You know, right after the rookie draft, the next day, 40 come off the board. About a week later, it's like 20. And then it's like 5 league-wide. Jaheim Bell's always in that 5. I'm like, all right, I'm going to pick him up. Because, you know, I'm moving off of a lot of dead weight on my rosters, too. I'm going, hey, Kenye, I can't pronounce his name. So I cut him. Who else do I cut? You know, guys like, I want to say Keontae Ingram, KJ Osborne, just random guys that should not be on my roster. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to cut these guys for a new guy that I'll probably end up cutting in 3 months. But at least he hasn't been in the league for 6 years.
So you ever been to a grocery store and you're in the canned food aisle? The Jaheim Bell is like the dented can that people just keep moving aside.
Yes.
And that the stalker just keeps moving to the front, and then the person just moves it aside and gets the one behind it.
Well, I keep grabbing them.
Someone will buy it when they put the price at this has the, you know how they put the extra sticker over top the real barcode and it says this one's like 90% off if you buy it today? That's the Jaheim Bell of Dynasty.
It is. I'm getting him for 15 cents because he's slightly damaged, and I'm buying 10 for 1 deals, apparently.
Yes. All right. You want to go receiver or running back next?